Isn't it time to get out of your own way? Hi, I'm David Saville, creator of Becoming Superhuman. I'm a life coach, but rather than just asking questions, I challenge my clients in a way that creates radical transformation in a single session. I'm currently releasing my signature program, Becoming Superhuman, as a range of immersive events, online courses, and live adventures to help you handle anything, create anything, and choose to be powerful. I also want to raise global standards by training leaders of companies, leaders of countries, rippling throughout the world, creating companies and countries that do meaningful work and to do what's right, helping future generations of children to naturally embrace risk, help others, and seek to live lives that mean something. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Welcome to Becoming Superhuman, and welcome, Christina. Today we're going to be exploring, isn't it time to get out of your own way? Now, through my years of personal growth, like the development over years, plus having worked with hundreds of people deeply in a range of things, from the deep coaching work to the immersive adventures and all the different ways that I've worked with people, and over long periods of time as well. Even the most highly developed, even the ones who, even myself and the people who are willing to challenge themselves the most, are also holding themselves back. We are all holding ourselves back. We just don't always know where that is. Welcome, Angela, welcome. And so there tends to be a process of growth and holding back, and growth and holding back. And it's just the way it seems to work. However, there's certain mechanisms at play that when we're aware of them can actually smooth that process up. And that's what I'm going to be exploring today. One of those mechanisms that is often people get back to front, that I'm going to be exploring and helping to unpack to help you so you can go away and do something with it to actually transform your relationship to what you want in life and how to achieve it. So there's a movie I was watching recently which kind of emphasizes this. And movies are great for this, actually. They often show an exaggerated form of what we're all experiencing. So this was Wonder Woman? Yeah, Wonder Woman is what it was. So Wonder Woman is this, she's actually grows up as a part of this Amazonian tribe, in case you don't know. And she's just fit and strong, and she's like the daughter of the leader. And she grows up and she's like this incredible fighter, but she's held back by her mum. Her mum's continually like, I don't want you fighting. You'll never be this great leader, is what she was saying. You'll never be this great warrior. And from the very early on, this is the lessons, the messages she's been told. She will never be the great warrior that she wants to be, even though she's drawn to it, even though she's hungry for it, and her aunt ends up teaching her these fighting skills. But that's not her pathway. That's not for her. And then she has these moments of like these ripples of power that come out that are beyond what anyone else has. It kind of blows people away, but no one really talks about it. No one really explains what's going on. There's just every now and then she'll do something that is shocking, and that gives an example of a power that must be there that she doesn't really understand and doesn't know how to utilize. As the movie develops, what you get to find out is that she's actually the daughter of Zeus, like the god, god of all gods of the Greek gods, right? Zeus is her father. So she has godlike powers, and through the movie she gets to test these out. And only by having like part of her tribe like murdered, having to then go out into the world and try and find a way to save her tribe, does she find out she learns to access these powers. And as it goes on, you realise she's actually got like powers like Superman, actually. In fact, in one of the movies, she's battling with Superman, and she's tougher than Superman in lots of ways. It's like, but she wouldn't have known that growing up. And so it's only through exposure to these extreme circumstances does she discover what's going on. And then she finds out the truth of her heritage, and that allows her to just let loose as well and to unleash even more. So back to us, right? And into the way we live life. Like, we are born as babies with infinite potential. Now, each of us has different potential. We don't know what the potential is, but it is infinite in some way. We literally don't know where our limits are. How do we find that out? So in the early development, we are figuring out how to survive and how to live, and the people around us will teach us that. So if we're around people who have limited thinking and limited ways of being themselves, we are going to have that imprinted upon us, and that's where we begin. And so it's the fear of others often which creates the early problems in our development, in our limitless potential seeking. Because we have a limit, of course we do. We have physical limits, psychological limits, emotional limits. We have boundaries in what we're able to achieve. We just don't know what they are. And most of us, well, I say this actually, because in my work helping people to become superhuman, I get to see this, and myself too. Most of us, even if we're growing regularly and doing good work, so it's not people who aren't growing, this is us, right? We're doing this good work. Unless we challenge ourselves enough and in a continual way, we are probably going to get to the end of our lives having reached 2% of what we were capable of. 2%, and that's if we're trying hard, because of the active process that gets in the way of us finding out more, because of our limited way of thinking, because our survival mechanism is there to protect us, right? And thank you for the loves, right? It makes sense. Thank you for the loves. That wasn't what I meant to say at all. It distracted me. The survival mechanism is there because to help us not die. And it's really important that we really appreciate this, because we seem to be deceived. People talk as if we are not primal beings. People act as if we are these evolved beings that have no longer should be beholden to our biology and towards our biochemistry and our neurology, which is going back billions of years. We seem to think that just because we're able to imagine beyond it, that we are beyond it, but that's not true at all. We're so far back compared to where we think we are, that it is what gets in the way. We have these amazing minds, and we can imagine so much, and we can predict so many problems. And it's a wonderful thing when used well, but it can be a problem because it can stop us from achieving things. We can get so good at predicting failure that we end up not doing the work that will lead us to find out where we can be successful. And this is very normal. This is, it's so sad actually. I find this gets me when you see children, like when I spoke at this school last month, there were, 6 to 9 year olds already understanding what overwhelming fear is and how it controls their thoughts. Like 7-year-olds talking about overwhelming fear, stopping them doing things at 7. Now, and then when I shared this with someone that I met a couple of weeks ago, actually, this guy, and he says, and he was like, yeah, that's normal. And I'm like, what do you mean that's normal? And I'm like, well, it is normal, but he didn't say normal as in it's normal and bad, like we should change it. His opinion was it's normal and there's nothing we can do. And that's unacceptable to me. It's unacceptable that we are raising children to be scared at 7 years old about life. Obviously there are children in extreme circumstances when that's appropriate, but most children are not in those extreme circumstances. They are just being raised in an environment where people don't understand this stuff. And so what they're doing is they're projecting their fears onto their children, and their children are growing up scared a lot sooner than they would have been. A lot of the problem is we have more free time, right? It's part of the problem is that we have more time to be scared. We have more time to worry about stuff. So what happens? Our brain fills the gaps with all this worry. And that is what a lot of the problem is. Like when it comes to achieving something, like what is something you want to achieve? I mean, write it out here. Like what is something, a dream of yours? What is something that you love to do, but that seems impossible or seems like hard or seems far away? What is it? Post it in the comments. If you do that, maybe it can help you take a step towards it, because the thing that will stop you getting it is the active process of doubting. So it isn't belief you need, it's the opposite, in fact. It's to stop getting in the way of finding out. And it's a very simple process, actually. It's why I say, we don't need to believe in ourselves, because what happens when you don't? Are you really going to believe in yourself all the time, every day, for the things you want? It's unlikely. You're going to have bad days. You're going to feel crap sometimes. You're going to come up against new things that you don't know. What are you going to do when you're in that space? What are you going to do when things are hard? So how about get rid of the idea that you need to believe in yourself completely, and just be aware of the mechanism of doubting being in the way. Because doubting can be useful. It's important to understand where your limits might be, but to do the work to actually achieve it. And doing the work is the most important thing. It doesn't matter what it is you want. There is always work to be done. And you're always going to be scared about certain things. When you stretch yourself, by definition, you are going into the unknown. The unknown is the fear of death, essentially. We get distracted with all these things around us. We don't realise that's what it is, right? Why would we be scared of the unknown? Because we could die, right? And so because of that, the doubts will come up. But how can we use those doubts? So actually, I'll come to that later, how we can actually use them. But the mechanism of doubting is very important. Understanding the doubting in the way of your goal. So that's it. You have what you want and you have the doubting process. Now, some of us at different times will ignore the doubting process and do the work. In fact, a friend of mine and I, we went to this parkour park last year or the year before. There were these kids, 15 years old, roughly. And one of them said he just decided to run, it was about a half marathon distance. And then he got there and he goes, I'm just going to run back. And he'd never done it before. And he's running back. And as he's running back, he was like, oh no. His mind was going, you've done too much. You haven't drunk enough water. You need to stop. You're never going to be able to do this. But what he did was, because I asked him, how did you keep going? Because he made it. He got to the end. But he was so sure that he wouldn't. His brain was telling him, you can't do this. You're not physically strong enough. You're not capable enough. What did he do? He just looked at the horizon. And the doubts were there. He just didn't pay attention to them. He instead focused on the direction he's headed in, be aware of his body, and carried on. He allowed himself to find out through experience, even though his mind was going nuts trying to stop him. 15 years old, he's figured that out. I mean, my God, it took me 40 years or close to 40 years to get to that point. But that's someone who can achieve things, who's willing to use the doubting process, maybe as ideas. It's like, do you need more water? Let me check in. Do I really need more water? You can assess for yourself, can't you, these things? And it's the same for anything you want to achieve. The doubts will be there as clues, as suggestions, as possibilities. You don't need to get in the way of that. What will happen though, if you don't do the work, in other words, you're not using the energy, what will happen, your mind will go, great, I've now got a lot of energy that I can use and I'm bored, so what I'm going to do is overact. I'm going to overuse, and it's just going to spin thoughts. Have you ever had that time when your mind's just spinning things again and again and again, and it just seems to go in a spiral of negativity? It's because you're not using the energy correctly. You're using the energy, your energy is just waiting to be utilized. So it's very important that you be aware of the active doubting process, and instead of listening to it too closely, you do the work instead. Is this making sense? Does this make sense to you? Can you think of moments in your life when you've had this doubting process activated and when you've given into it? Oh, Lewis, hey man, I didn't see you there. And Maria, hello, welcome. So a great example of seeing a moment before this gets in is a baby learning to walk. Now you would have heard this before, but in this way, it's very important you pay attention in this way because it's not always clear. So when a baby's learning to walk, a baby's crawling along, it will stand up and it will toddle over, it will fall down repeatedly, right? Thousands of times. Some point, it will stand up and it's got the right amount of, the muscles are strong enough at the moment. It's got the right back muscles in this moment so it can stand upright. Its vestibular system, the balance system is activated. And the baby is about, standing here and suddenly the baby takes a step. Maybe it takes a second step. Everyone erupts, goes mental, like cheering the baby. The baby's cheering himself, falls on his ass again. Everyone goes nuts. The baby still can't walk. The baby's still crap at walking, right? It's terrible. It's going to be bad at walking for months, maybe years. In fact, if you see a 2-year-old, a lot of 2-year-olds are still bad at walking, right? Even though they've been doing it for a year, they're not really good at it yet. And yet, what's happening? They're cheering, they're laughing, they're joking. When someone laughs at them when they fall over, they laugh too. They don't have an awareness that they might be being judged, and that's a bad thing. They don't have an awareness that they should stop. They just keep going. Thank you for the likes. It makes sense, doesn't it? So it's really important, this. We cheer babies' failures, repeated failures. We are cheering them all the way through because the failure is how the baby's learning and we're honouring that process. And we can do that for a baby. Why can't we do that for ourselves? Why can't you do you do that for yourself? Do you honour your failures on the way to your success? Now, some people glorify failure for the sake of it. In fact, in the coaching world, unfortunately, they often do it. But they're missing the important part, which is fail towards success. That's the important part. It isn't about raising failure up on its own, but it is being very aware that you need to do things, you're going to do things badly. So you need to keep doing it. Julie, hello there, welcome. So you'll get this in the work that you do with people, right? You'll see this playing out repeatedly. It's like, how many of your clients actually celebrate their successes as well as equally as their failures? So there's no difference there. Of course, there's a natural burst of excitement when you succeed at something, but what about the actual failure process itself? All the time, wonderful. Is that something you're coaching them to do? Because that's not a natural thing, right? Are you training them to do that, Julie? Because that's a very important process. In fact, any coaches watching this should really be doing this, really celebrating, promoting the success, the failures as much as the successes. To be honest with you, the successes, it's cool, but the success is probably going to be limited, right? It's like a friend of mine, he's just taken some people up Kilimanjaro a few weeks ago, actually, on this BBC thing. And for him, when I knew him at school, right, he's just this ordinary kid. And then, 20 years later, he is leading these bunch of celebrities up Kilimanjaro, right? And it's like, well, how did he get to do that? He didn't just happen magically. He has done a lot of work. He has probably done a lot of trips with damn hard work on his own first. I know in his 20s he went traveling and would have had those tough experiences. And then over years, worked with people, become really good at it, and it's evolved into the point where people go, hey, can you come do this thing for the BBC? Right? It's the nature of progression, right? Julie says, yes, wonderful. Good work, Julie, that's awesome. Sign of a good coach, when you get your clients to love when they do badly. I remember one of my clients, actually, when she signed up for like a year's program at the end of last year, I said, as soon as she paid, I'm like, you're screwed. She says, yeah, I know. And she was very happy about that because she knows she's going to be working. So, if you like this so far, I've got a brand new audio that you may love, which is it's essentially as close to having a coaching session with me as you can without actually have one. And you can go to becomingsuperhuman.co.uk if you're interested. Enter your email. You can get the audio. It's about a 40-minute audio, actually. And within it is an opportunity for transformation. You listen in an engaged way, something could change for you. So if you're interested in that, I recommend you go there. I'm very proud of it, actually. It's very cool. So when it comes to this stuff, I did a training a couple of weeks ago, an online training for entrepreneurs. Now, as part of that training, we were talking about impossible goals. Because I'm of the belief, and my experience is, when you have a goal that seems impossible, what happens is, who you become in going for it means you become so much more. It requires more resources, you have to work harder, you become so much more. People have possible goals. A possible goal would be maybe getting a promotion, right? So it's like next in line in the career you're already on, that's a possible goal. It's all right, but it's ordinary, and it's linear, and there's not a lot to that. An impossible goal might be to go from someone who works in marketing, as an example, going for the CEO job, right? It's an impossible dream, but not impossible to achieve. In fact, it depends on what work's required, depends on where you are in your development, depends on what's required in the role, but that could be an exciting, impossible goal. If you had a year to become CEO, that would be awesome. That'd be an exciting one to go for, right? But the good thing about these are, you may feel impossible, so you lose that attachment, right? When it's possible as well and you're not there, it feels crappy because you should be there. When it's impossible and you're not there, well, it's impossible anyway, but you become so much more by taking your steps towards it. So I was on this training, I was talking about these impossible goals. I was asking them, I said, what are your impossible goals? What's something that seems impossible for you that you would love to achieve? And one person on there, she said it was to speak in front of 10,000 people. So I'm like, that sounds cool. Yeah, it sounds big. And I'm like, but I'd also knew her before. So I was questioning, so what's the most you've spoken in front of so far? So she said 1,000. I'm like, huh. So that's times 10 what she's done before. And I'm like, well, it seems like a big goal, but so I said to her, does that really feel impossible? And she was like, no, it's a big goal. So I'm like, well, what's an impossible one then? What seems like beyond your capabilities right now? What is an impossible goal for you? Then she comes back and she's like, And she was kind of a bit coy about it, like openly, like, you know, bit uncomfortable. She was like 100,000. She'd love to speak in front of a stadium full of people of 100,000. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. What else would you want? And that's when she talked about being on TV as well, like maybe being on a panel show. And again, she was like, even writing in there, like whispering this goal, right? Because she'd never said it out loud, not publicly before. And this is huge. These are maybe things for the distant future. She's sharing them there. So I'm like, great, okay. Stadium for the people, TV show. Okay, who do you know right now who could help you, who you could message at the end of this training, and you could actually ask if they can help you? Who could you ask? And or how many people can you ask? And so she came up with three people so far. Wonderful. And I was like, so do you agree to message him immediately after this training? She was like, yes, because she's awesome. And then what I found out was, because it was about a day later or something, she posted something about it. What she'd done is she'd messaged those people, and she'd got one person back who could connect with media, so that pathway's opening up. The other two she's waiting to get back from, and then she's also had 3 other opportunities open up since then. So by opening her awareness, she has invited in opportunities. These things that seemed so far away, suddenly, well, not just closer, but really possible, and had direct pathways that she could walk down right now. And she began it within 24 hours. So I don't know what's happening now. It's been about a week and a half since then. But if she keeps up the willingness, and she keeps seeking it, and she keeps doing the work, she'll achieve those things and a lot more. That's the way this stuff works. A lot of it is not about the how hard it is to achieve something. It's how willing are we to put aside our doubts and do the work. Because if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to fail publicly, if you're willing to do the hard work, your life will evolve rapidly. Your life can change so fast. And that goes for romance, that goes for physicality, that goes for career dreams. You know, this stuff is right here. This is the work I do with my clients, right? It's there for you to take the steps. Judy says, the energy is the energy. There's something about that, you know, whether you have a spiritual leaning or not, you don't need to. It's just something that happens, really. It's like, even if you're looking purely psychological, once you allow yourself to be able to see psychologically, you expand your vision, because our neurology only allows us to see like a tiny, like 0.00001% of existence, right? So because of that, we really need to choose what we look at. So once you open your awareness to something, you can notice the clues and you can follow the breadcrumbs. So whether it's purely psychological, whether it's spiritual and psychological mixed in, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you put aside the active doubting process and you do the work. Now, what you can do, something that's very useful for this, is the doubts come up, and what you can do is you write them out. What are the doubts? Like, make them real, put them on a bit of paper, and then use them. So if, for instance, when it comes to speaking in front of 100,000, it's like, well, I don't know if I'm good enough to speak in front of 100,000. That's a very useful doubt, isn't it? What can you do with that doubt? Well, the doubt of speaking in front of 100,000, for instance, is, well, what do I need to do? How can I test myself? So there's plenty of ways, isn't there? There's live videos, there's talks, there's talking to friends. There's so many things you can actively do to prepare yourself to do that thing. So any of those doubts that come up, use them. Don't totally ignore them, or you can do, but use them to do the work. It's a very useful process. And what happens over time is you're re-educating your system to doubt better. You get a finer tuned doubting process that works for you. And that's what I'd recommend. So I'm going to wrap up in a moment, but I want to leave you with one thing, the genius of children. So when I was speaking in front of these 50 kids last month, at the end, I was talking about, because they were talking about their dreams, right? It's like, what dreams do you have? And there were great things like paleontologist and quantum adventurer was a cool one, and ballerina and all these different things. And then one girl, she said, one of the things that might stop her achieving it was that someone might tell her she can't do it, right? She was about 6 years old. So someone might tell her she can't do that. So what I said to her was this. I said, so someone tells you you can't do something. What is it? So I did a little bit of micro coaching. What could you do? So someone tells you you can't do it. What could you do then if someone told you you couldn't do something, but you really wanted to anyway? What could you do? I just waited. She says, well, I could practice it at home, by myself. I'm like, you could, couldn't you? I said, and what would happen if you practiced it by yourself for a few weeks or a few months, and then someone told you couldn't do it? I mean, what would that mean? She's like, and she thought, she's like, well, it wouldn't really matter. And I'm like, it wouldn't, would it? Now, why wouldn't it matter? And she's like, well, because I've been doing it. I'm like, that's right, because you've been doing it. And so, simple, isn't it? That's as simple as it is, out the mind of a 6-year-old. It doesn't matter what anyone says. It doesn't matter what you think. You can just practice it and see what happens. So thank you for being here. If you've got any questions or any comments, please leave them here. And if you want to check out the audio training, which is essentially like a coaching session, as close as you can get it to be without being in a coaching session with me, is opportunity for you to transform something, go to becomingsuperhuman.co.uk, click on the link, enter your email, and you will get access immediately to that 40-minute training. And if you want to take a quantum leap and you want my support immediately or as soon as possible, you can go for a no-fee tryout, which is at tryout.becomingsuperhuman.me. Either way, I look forward to seeing you very soon. Julie, thanks for the wisdom, David. So thank you, Julie, and thank you very much for being here and for joining in. I really appreciate you taking the effort to do that. So thank you for being here, and I will see you soon.